Welcome back. My name is Adam once again, and in this next section of my series on introducing AWS SAM to build Python-based REST API applications, I'm going to refactor the Hello World template example to be a Flask implementation. So in order to be able to do this, what I want to use is the FlaskLambda library, which essentially parses and wraps the payloads that are passed to AWS Lambda functions from API Gateway as an instantiated Flask object. So there is a GitHub project, FlaskLambda, that kind of explains it a little bit more and briefly shows you how to get up and going with it. So the name of the Python package is just simply flask-lambda, and it lives on PyPI, so you can do regular normal pip installs to install it. So if I copy that and I come back to my Hello World SAM example, and I go into my requirements.txt file, and I paste in my flask-lambda as a new library dependency for this Hello World example, I can come over here and refactor this. So I think what I'll do is I'll make a copy of that original file and rename it to app-orig, just so we have something to compare to. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and delete, didn't want to delete the original, and regular app.py, I'll select everything and delete everything, and then start from scratch using that FlaskLambda library. So first thing I need to do is import FlaskLambda. So from FlaskLambda, import FlaskLambda, and then a dependency of FlaskLambda is actually the regular Flask library itself. So I will import the JSONify library or JSONify function from the Flask library. So from Flask, import JSONify. And then I make a Flask application instance, but instead of using Flask like I normally would, a regular Flask application, I'll actually use FlaskLambda. And I'll just give it the name of this app.py module for the application name. And then it's just Flask as usual. I make a route decorator to decorate a view function, and this will be named hello for the path. And then I can make a hello world view function that corresponds with the route decorator. And that's just simply going to return JSONify of a dictionary message hello world. And that's it. That's all that's actually required to refactor this initial SAM and Python-based Lambda function to a Flask implementation. So since I've updated this, when I now updated the source code as well as the requirements.txt file, there's one more thing I need to do. I need to come back over to my template.yaml file, and let's look at the function resource that was defined. And the code URI is still the same. The code still lives in the Hello World directory, but my handler now has changed. So what used to be a function named Lambda handler in the original should now be the Flask Lambda application instance variable named app. So what FlaskLambda does is it overrides. So if I come back over here and we open up the source code for FlaskLambda, we see that FlaskLambda overrides the dunder call object method. And so what that does is it turns it into a regular callable, and it gets past the event and context, which it then parses and turns into like a normal Flask aware application. So what that means is instead of Lambda handler, I can just say app.app. So app is the name of the file, and then the callable is the app variable. And so with that out of the way, in order to make these changes take effect, we got to rebuild the application. So we'll do sam build use container. So it uses the Docker image to build it. So this is going to pull down our FlaskLambda library, package up the source code, and then now I can do sam deploy, and I no longer have to use the -- guided, because that's going to use all my saved parameters to this sam config.toml. So it'll reuse those parameters. I issue sam deploy, and it's going to upload my function to S3 again, and then it's going to ask me if I want to confirm my deployment here once it finishes uploading, and yes I do. So it shouldn't take too long to re-upload the updated version of this. And then I have my endpoint once again. So if I just do HTTP without the trailing slash, then I get hello world once again. And if you look at the original, we know it's coming from the new Flask version because I actually changed it just slightly. So the original implementation has no capitalizations and it doesn't have an exclamation mark. But when I redid it, I included a capital H and a capital W and then a trailing exclamation mark. So we know that's coming from the FlaskLambda implementation. And so that concludes refactoring our simple hello world example to FlaskLambda implementation. I hope you found this interesting and enjoyable. If you want to learn more about how you can use AWS SAM as well as the FlaskLambda implementation of the Flask Microframework, you can find a link below this video for my Udemy course, The Ultimate Guide to Deploying Flask to the AWS Cloud, where I cover both traditional server-based approaches and architectures to deploying to the AWS Cloud, as well as a section on serverless approaches using the Serverless Application Model framework. So if you want to learn more, be sure to head over to Udemy and give my course a try. And if not, stay tuned for more videos in the future. Thanks for joining. Bye.